And don't kid yourself, you do have a military-industrial complex. They do like war.
Losing a grip on our empire is not welcomed by the neoconservatives in charge.
They do like war. They do like war.
Any information that challenges the official propaganda for the war in the Middle East is unwelcome by the administration and supporters of these unnecessary
I want to make the case for secrecy in government when it comes to the conduct of national security affairs, and possibly for deception where that's appropriate. You know, Winston Churchill said during World War II that in wartime, truth is so important it should be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies.
Few are interested in understanding the relationship of our foreign policy and our presence in the Middle East to the threat of terrorism. Revealing the real nature and goal of our presence in so many Muslim countries is a threat to our empire, and any revelation of this truth is highly resented by those in charge. Questions to consider. Do the American people deserve to know the truth regarding the ongoing war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Yemen?
Right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
What if the American people woke up and understood that the official reasons for going to war are almost always based on lies and promoted by war propaganda in order to serve special interests? What if we as a nation came to realize that the quest for empire eventually destroys all great nations?
Bomb Iran, you know, bomb. Anyway.
I would be launching airstrikes not only in Iraq, but in Syria.
It's not going to be over right away. There's going to be other wars. I'm sorry to tell you, there's going to be other wars. We will never surrender, but there will be other wars. And right now, we're going to have a lot of PTSD to treat, my friends.
Bomb Iran.
When I first came to office, one of the first meetings I had was at the Pentagon with generals, and they were showing me the Middle East. And they had 14 or 15 sites where there was nothing but war, problems. Every single one of those sites was instigated by Iran. It was Iran military. It was people paid by Iran. It was just, you have no idea. It was just, I said, this is terrible. They were so strong. In Syria with the caliphate. So I wipe out 100% of the caliphate. I say, I want to bring our troops back home. The place went crazy. They want to keep, you have people here in Washington, they never want to leave. Someday people will explain it.
Well, this is an example.
You do have a group, and they call it the military-industrial complex.
What if the American people woke up and understood that the official reasons for going to war are almost always based on lies and promoted by war propaganda in order to serve special interests?
We're looking at the oil assets. That's the single most
important income stream to the government of Venezuela. We're looking at what to do to that. We want everybody to know we're looking at all this very seriously. We don't want any American businesses or investors caught by surprise. Well, we're in conversation with major American companies now that are either in Venezuela or, in the case of Citgo, here in the United States. I think we're trying to get to the same end result here. You know, Venezuela is one of the three countries I call the troika of tyranny. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of the United States. We both have a lot at stake here, making this come out the right way.
Been a lot of comments that we're going to war with Iran. That's farthest thing from the truth. This is more of a defensive, deterrent posture and policy that we're engaged in, a showing of force to Iran that they better not get aggressive and hit our allies, which they have done. I mean, David, they hit 4 tankers in the Persian Gulf. They came a mile away from our embassy with a rocket, and we have to take that seriously.
Well, exactly. That was my question. It was going to be in part, to what extent is this protecting U.S. interests and U.S. assets as opposed to things like Saudi Arabia and, for that matter, Israel?
Well, I think it's, protecting our allies in the region like Israel, like Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and making sure that the commerce out of the Gulf can go in and out without disruption, to protect our military forces who are there. And, I think it's, protecting our allies in the region like Israel, like Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states.
What's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
Yutaka Katada says the damage is on a part of the ship's hull that's above the waterline. He also says the crew saw objects flying before the explosion, as well as an Iranian naval vessel. He didn't elaborate on its presence any further. But the United States, though, they've provided what they say is evidence that Iran is responsible for the latest attacks in the Gulf. The U.S. military has released a video which it says shows Iranian Revolutionary Guards detaching an unexploded mine from the Japanese tanker. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo alleges Iran attacked the ship and another one in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday. Iran has rejected any involvement.